President Biden, it is an honor and a privilege to have you appear on the Civic Media Radio Network and especially the Earl Ingram Show. I have a few questions that I'd like to ask you, sir.
Fire away, man.
Uh, can you speak to some accomplishments that we may or may not be familiar with about your record, especially here in Wisconsin?
Well, there's a number of them. For example, back in March, I was in Milwaukee. I announced $36 million for the 6th Street project to reconnect communities, helping families and businesses come together. You know, we built highways back in those days, separating communities, breaking up businesses, breaking up economic opportunities. And we're rebuilding them to connect those communities. I'm proud to be running for re-election as a president who's made his promises, and I've kept them. For example, I promised we'd get through this toughest time in history, and because we were left after the pandemic, which my opponent has absolutely screwed up, causing the deaths of millions of, well, not millions, but over a million people died. And we resulted in sending $1,400 checks to people who were in trouble. We created 15.6 million jobs. Inflation was brought down, it's continuing to come down, and we're going to lower prices for groceries and gasoline and the rest for our average people, and particularly in the black community and minority communities. And I promised we'd take on big pharma, the pharmaceutical companies that are ripping us off and ripping everybody off. And so now, for example, anybody you know who has a diabetes, needs insulin, they only have to pay it only costs $8 for these guys to make it. $35 is the maximum they can charge now. And we set a cap that's on the law now that caps at $2,000. All the prescriptions that anyone as a senior would need. And some of these drugs cost, for cancer drugs, cost $10, $12, $14,000. And I want to do that for everybody in America, everybody. Now, that's capped. 1.3 million Wisconsin Medicare beneficiaries get that benefit. More black families have health coverage through the ACA, the old Obamacare, than ever before, because so many, as you know, so many black families have pre-existing conditions when they try to go get insurance. If they have a pre-existing condition, they can't get that insurance. This provides that for them. They're able to get insurance, and I just increased that by $800 per person to be able to afford it. And in addition to that, we're building black wealth. The result, black wealth, since the pandemic, is up 60%. There's a hell of a lot more to do, but it's up. Black home ownership is up. You know, you build a home on one side of a superhighway that's in a white community, and build the same home on the other side of the superhighway in a black community. The black community home is all immediately assessed at somewhere between 20 and 40% less in value than the home in the white community. It's wrong. It's simply wrong. We're changing that. Black-owned small businesses are starting up faster than any time in decades. There's over 220,000 new black business applications in Wisconsin alone. We're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in small businesses in this state. You're giving people a chance to start a small business. I promised to relieve student debt. The result is $2.3 billion in student loan debt relief for over 60,000 borrowers in Wisconsin, many of them black borrowers. And by the way, HBCUs have, and their students are as bright as students anywhere else, but they don't have the endowments to set up the laboratories for the jobs of the future. So I've been able to provide, and I promised I'd do it, $16 billion just since I've been elected, invested in HBCUs. So they're going to be able to put out the best folks in the world because they have the capacity to do it. There's a lot more, but in addition to that, anyway, I'm probably talking too long, but I come out of the black community in terms of being elected the first time back when I was 29, and the source of my support, and it is, anyway.
You've already, President Biden, you've already answered question two that I wanted to ask you. What's at stake for black voters this election? I think you've done a great job explaining,
So
what's at stake.
there's one other thing, Earl. Look, the fact is, I promised that when I got elected, I would have an administration that looked like America. look like America. I served with the first black president in American history. I picked a black woman to be my vice president. I've appointed the first black woman to be a Supreme Court justice, who in fact is just as smart as hell, Ketanji Brown and Jackson. And in addition to that, we're working in a position that we have provided for. I've appointed more black judges, more black women judges than every other president in American history combined, because it's important. Representation is important. They have to have a voice, and that gives them a voice, gives the black community a voice. And and there's a lot at stake here. I mean, I got a guy I'm running against who's embracing political violence, pledging to rule as a dictator on day one, attacking the right to vote. He's been attacking the right to vote since a long, long time. And he's going to make the wealthy and large corporations pay I'm going to make sure they pay their fair share. He's going to double down on tax breaks for them. And he wants to I want to strengthen Medicare and Social Security. He wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. Imagine what that means for the elderly black community. I mean, it's amazing. And look, he is just, I'm sorry to get so worked up, but he's done terrible things in the community, and he has about as much interest and concern for black and minority communities as the man in the moon does.
So, as a person of color, I am excited about you getting worked up. Question 3. I got a couple more questions, President Biden.
Sure.
A lot of people have been told or have the mindset that their vote doesn't matter. What can you say to them?
What I can say is the vote of the black community matters intensely, intensely. Look, it makes up a significant portion of the American population. Who's going to represent you except folks like me? And we're not going to be able to represent you if you're not showing up, in fact, to vote. It matters. Your voice has to be heard. Lots of close elections the last couple of years, and every vote counts. Understand that for far too long, the black community, black Americans often love their country a hell of a lot more than their countries love them, and haven't loved them back in equal measure. Because folks like you turn out to vote in 2020, we have made remarkable progress. The president is the most powerful office in the world, but we need someone with wisdom and character. We need someone who's going to make sure that the Supreme Court just issued a decision, by the way, that threatens the American principle that we have no kings in America. There's no one above the law. That's what we gave Donald Trump the power to use a system that is just never contemplated by our founders because of the people he appointed to the court. It's just presidential immunity. He can say that I did this in my capacity as an executive. It may have been wrong, but I did it. But that's going to hold because and this is the same guy who says that he wants to enact revenge. He wants to organize a coup. He said, I want to rule as a dictator. The stakes are really high. I know you know this. For democracy, for freedom, our economics, our economy are all on the line. And the other side is working overtime to chip away at your right to vote to begin with. And we're working harder and harder to protect that right to vote. There's so much at stake here, and no more at stake than to the working class women and men of America, and particularly minorities, Hispanics, Asian Americans, African Americans. It really matters. That's what makes us who we are. We're a great country because we give everybody a shot. And he doesn't want to give anybody but his, like he said down in Mar-a-Lago, he said, I know you're all rich as hell, and I'm going to make you richer. And they all thought that, and then that's funny. At the same time, as I said, he wants a 10% tariff on everything imported in the United States, which experts point out is going to raise the taxes on average Americans $2,500. Raise their taxes. Well, it gives a $5 trillion tax cut next time out for everybody making. Anyway, I don't want to get too wrapped up, but it really, I have nothing but an incredible disregard for everything he stands for with regard to the community.
And the last question, President Biden. Let's talk about the debate. Can you address some of the concerns about your performance and Trump's ridiculous remark about black jobs?
Well, look, two things. One, I had a bad night. I had a bad night. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, it was, I screwed up. I made a mistake. And, but I learned from my father, when you get knocked down, just get back up. Get back up. And, you know, we're going to win this election. We're going to just beat Donald Trump like we did in 2020. We're going to beat him again. But we need all of you to get this done, all of you. Look, I came back I was in a situation where, without why I didn't have a good debate. That's 90 minutes on stage. Look at what I've done in 3.5 years. I led the economy back from the brink of collapse. It's still improving. We got more to do. I lowered prescription drug prices. I've worked with Republicans to expand veterans' health care. This is the same guy, by the way, when I was over in Normandy. I wanted to go to a World War One cemetery. And this is the same cemetery he stood with his former four-star general and chief of staff, Kelly, when he was there. And he said, didn't want to go because there are losers and whiners. My son died because of a year in Iraq. And this guy's talking to these guys about being losers and whiners. He has no respect for anybody. I really mean it. And look, Republicans, a couple of Republicans jumped in and helped me expand health care. Now, for example, you remember, because you reported on it, that when the Agent Orange was being dropped on people's heads during the Vietnam War, that they said they would be compensated. But guess what? They couldn't prove that the specific problem they had was because of Agent Orange. I changed that in the bill that I got passed, that we wrote. And the same way with my son. My son, I was in and out of Iraq many times. He was there for a year. He volunteered to go. He lived just about a quarter mile from what they call a burn pits. These are size of football fields, 10 feet deep, to dump everything from human waste to pollution in there, and they burn it, and all those fumes. The reason why he came back, went a very healthy man, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma, more brain injuries in that war than any other war, and he died. I'll be damned if I let this president talk about veterans the way he talked. Now we have all those folks who are around those burn pits and all those folks in Agent Orange. They now, over 1 million of them, now are getting the benefits that their families deserve. We only have one sacred obligation. That's to prepare those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home. And now we're finally beginning to do that. But look, here's the deal. 90 minutes on stage, as I said, I've done this, what I've done in the last 3.5 years is, by the way, there's not quite, well, by the way, you asked me about the black jobs. You know what he's doing. It's shameful. He's talking about black jobs, meaning all the things that blacks can do are manual labor, menial labor. That's what he's doing. That's how he looks at it. Name me something he's done to help the black community, give people a shot like I've done in college and education and home buying and a whole range of things. This is the guy that questioned George Floyd's humanity, led to the birther movement against Barack Obama. This is the guy that said Barack Obama, that black guy, he wasn't born in America, and he kept it going, lying like hell, just like he lied like hell about what's going on anyway. But look, he's falsely accused of Central Park 5. Those guys who were arrested, he said they should all be convicted and they were innocent. He won't even acknowledge that. And by the way, I'm proud that I've had the first black vice president in American history. And I'm proud to have appointed, I said, more black women in the Supreme Court, more black women in the federal courts and circuit courts than any other president, all presidents combined. Look, we can't waste talent in America. There's so much talent in the black community. All people, my dad used to say, everybody just deserves a shot. It's an even shot. That's all it is, just an even shot. And we have to invest more in education. I'm trying like hell to make sure. Look, there's a lot of folks coming from broken homes in the black and white communities. But we learned a lot through significant studies in my administration that if you have preschool at age 3 and 4 and 5, no matter what the background is, you have a 56% better chance going through 12 years of school and doing it well. And I think community college should be free. It would save America money. It would increase productivity in America. Just give people a chance. And I tell you what, the idea that you guys are reporting this on the 4th of July, just a little bit, I'm so short of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, is really important. We cannot let this guy win. It'd just be a disaster for America. And by the way, it's not just me. I'll end with a, there are 15 Nobel laureates, 14, I think, 14 or 15 Nobel laureates in the economy. They said if he's reelected, he's going to cause a recession, and he's laid out what he wants to do the second term. He said he's going to cause a recession, and we're going to have a significant rise in interest rates. They looked at mine and they said, what Biden's going to do if he's reelected, he's going to make sure interest rates come down. There's going to be a soft landing. We're going to be able to continue to grow the economy. The economy has never grown faster than under me. We're going to make sure it does, but it includes everybody. We're unique in all the world. All the world. We're the only nation that's organized based on an idea, not ethnicity, not race, not religion, on an idea. And that is, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator. We've never fully lived up to it, but we've never, ever walked away from it. We got to get closer and closer to it. He wants to walk away from it completely. And I'm sorry, I feel so strongly about this, that in particular as it affects hardworking people in minority communities.
President Biden, it is and has been an honor and a privilege to have had this opportunity. I want to say to you that you're talking to a man who's followed you for 45 years, watched your career, and predicted that President Obama was going to make you his vice president. So I'm speaking
I
for
don't
all
even
the
have
civic
to
media.
do that.
Uh,
You did do
yes,
that.
sir. I'm speaking for all of civic media across the network, across this entire state, that we support you, we love you, and keep up the good work.
Well, by the way, as my mother would say, you're doing God's work, kid. This is really important for so many people. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. That is President Joe Biden on Civic Media.